Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. And for Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood wins the Oscar. Think about this. Beverly Hills, 1993. Within the 4 seasons, the lobby is filled. Oscar winners sipping whiskey, producers wearing Armani suits, and Clint Eastwood standing by himself, arm crossed, eyes furrowed, and face expressionless, close to the grand piano. The young performer on the other side of the room is holding court, giggling, naming, and narrating a story that concludes with a cheesy imitation of the elderly cowboy director. Except for Clint, everyone chuckles. He simply drinks his drink, nods to the bartender, and leaves the room without turning around. He doesn't say anything. Just silence, no conflict, no spectacle, and the type of silence that is definitive. People talked about the moment in whispers for years. What did they say? What was it Clint heard? Why did Warner Brothers casting sheets quickly remove that actor's name? Nobody was ever aware of it, due to the fact that Clint Eastwood did not clarify. He refrained from tweeting, ranting, or making tabloid-style remarks. He simply calmly, icily, and irrevocably disappeared from people's lives. However, the quiet is suddenly shattering. The 94-year-old icon is at last lowering his defenses, and in a few infrequent instances of spontaneous candor, a pattern has been noticed. 5 famous people, 5 names. Clint Eastwood is never able to forgive. The people who made the deadly error of supposing he had forgotten, insulted him, or ridiculed his vision. They weren't only at odds with a filmmaker. A man who never gave up and lived by a code was crossed. A documentary firestarter who attempted to gain notoriety by ridiculing Clint's values was the first person on that list. And Clint didn't chuckle. He did not answer. All he did was make sure it didn't occur again. Michael Moore, Showdown, the documentary. It began with a joke. Michael Moore believed it to be a prank at the very least. During a National Board of Review Awards ceremony in 2005, Clint Eastwood ascended the stage and said something that made everyone stop laughing. In fact, I share a lot of similarities with Michael Moore. We both enjoy watching documentaries, but I'll kill him if he ever shows up at my front door with a camera. The audience gave an uneasy laugh. A few people let out gasps. Clint did not recoil. He did not smile in response, refused to let the room out. The tension was like gunpowder hanging in the air. It was not stand-up. There was a warning here. Clint had just made a verbal sand-drawing gesture. One more never again ventured across. More than a single casual remark was the source of this icy hostility. Fahrenheit 9/11, Moore's scathing critique of the Bush administration and US military activities following 9/11 had been making waves. Awards were given to it. It enraged Clint and made news. Eastwood, who had grown up admiring quiet service and praising World War II veterans, thought Moore's work was a cheesy attempt at self-promotion. It wasn't interpreted as criticism by him. He saw it as a betrayal. It was also very close to home. Clint wasn't merely an actor by that point. He had recently completed $1 Million Baby and was set to release Flags of Our Fathers. He was a filmmaker and a storyteller. Instead of making headlines, his films examined American identity, suffering, and sacrifice for the sake of history. According to Clint, Michael Moore wasn't recording the truth. He was making use of it. The two never worked together again, never even shared a frame. Additionally, Clint would most likely raise an eyebrow, give a single grunt, and bring up another topic if you questioned him about him today. Because public feuds are not something that Eastwood believes in. He is a silent eraser believer. However, Clint's patience was put to the test by more than just Moore. He went even farther in the following one, accusing Clint of erasing history in front of the world. Additionally, Clint Eastwood fired back rather than merely pushing back. Battle over history, Spike Lee. Clint Eastwood doesn't usually respond, but in 2008 he did, and it wasn't a kind one. Critics praised Eastwood's ambitious double feature when Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima debuted in theaters. One movie is seen from an American viewpoint, while the other is seen from a Japanese one. It was honest, gritty, and raw. However, Spike Lee felt that something significant was lacking. He pointed out the underrepresentation of Black Marines in Flags of Our Fathers and publicly accused Clint of removing them from the Iwo Jima tale. Numerous Black Americans sacrificed their lives. You can't ignore it, Spike remarked. Clint was furious. He didn't use nuanced or diplomatic language in his response. His reaction sounded more like a threat from the West. A man like him ought to keep his mouth shut. It was explosive in addition to defensive. The headlines were blazing. Spike also didn't hold back. I will not stop talking. He has the voice of an irate elderly man. The feud distorted entertainment news for days. Two titans of filmmaking, one the modern provocator and the other the conservative cowboy, engaged in a verbal spar that revealed Hollywood's most serious flaws. Clint never provided clarification for his statements, despite numerous attempts to arbitrate or interpret the aftermath. To Eastwood, that quiet told it everything. A particular group of soldiers was the subject of the Iwo Jima narrative. It didn't interest him to tick boxes. He was eager to share his narrative as he perceived it. Furthermore, he refused to allow anyone to control his paintings. However, Spike had a different perspective. He thought it was Clint's duty to relay the whole story of history, particularly when lives were wasted in silence. It was more than just a movie. It has to do with the significance of representation. And compromise was never an option for two guys as obstinate, opinionated, and proud as Eastwood and Lee. Since then, they have not spoken. They do not go to the same things. They don't show up on identical panels. Furthermore, none has officially acknowledged the other's legacy. However, if you believe that Clint's conflicts were limited to fellow directors, you should reconsider. Because his next feud took place on the set of his own film with one of the world's most well-known actors, who attempted to try to test Clint's patience, but failed. Gunslinger versus Method, Leonardo DiCaprio. They were two historical figures from two distinct eras. The seasoned, no-nonsense director Clint Eastwood, who cherished control, quiet, and speed, and Leonardo DiCaprio, the passionate, obsessive Method actor. Hollywood erupted when DiCaprio was cast in Eastwood's 2011 film J. Edgar. It was the final clash between the old and the new. However, that clash became a silent storm behind the scenes. The friction was noticeable right away. Clint's one-take directorial method made him famous. Little setup, little practice, shot, and go. It worked well. It came naturally. Additionally, it was the complete antithesis of DiCaprio's style. Leo enjoyed exploring. He desired several takes. He probed. He delved into Clint's emotional levels. As DiCaprio was trying to be discreet, Clint was yelling, "Cut! Move on!" Members of the crew discussed the tension in whispers. It was like watching a thoroughbred attempt to sprint in cowboy boots, according to one source. Although there were no walkouts or yelling matches, there was a tense atmosphere on set. Two skilled artisans with vastly different methods engaged in a quiet argument on the best way to tell a narrative. DiCaprio made every effort to adjust. Clint remained still. The movie was produced. It was made available. Then there was quiet. No second cooperation. No flattering remarks during interviews. During award season, no shout-outs are permitted. Clint, who regularly calls back performers he likes, such as Bradley Cooper and Morgan Freeman, never gave Leo another call. It was creative incompatibility, according to some. According to some, Clint thought DiCaprio was pompous, theatrical, and high maintenance. In any event, Eastwood never looked back once their career path broke like a broken lens. Although DiCaprio might have questioned Clint's command of the camera, the next person on the list did something much worse. He got away with making fun of Eastwood's legacy in front of everyone, or so he believed. Clint never forgot the sniper insult from Seth Rogen. Actors can be silent adversaries. Seth Rogen's voice was heard. The biographical war film American Sniper, directed by Clint Eastwood, was released in 2014. It was about Navy SEAL Chris Kyle. The movie caused a cultural uproar, broke box office records, and divided critics. While many saw it as a result of serving in the military, Reagan saw it as something else entirely. Days after it was published, Rogen made a joke on Twitter that made jaws drop to the ground. The scene in which the Nazi sniper murders allies, in the final act of Inglourious Basterds, is quite reminiscent of American Sniper. He made no specific reference to Clint. He was not required to. Comparing Eastwood's film to Nazi propaganda was a nuclear suggestion. Furthermore, even if Rogen maintained that it was a joke, the harm had already been done. Clint Eastwood did not respond to the tweet. He didn't make a declaration. Clint doesn't engage in social media conflicts. Therefore, he remained silent. He is silent, cold, quiet. According to insiders, Eastwood was furious behind closed doors, not only due to the insult, but also because it was made public. There was no argument. A hit and run occurred. Clint thought it was cowardly in addition to being disrespectful. Furthermore, even though Rogen would subsequently retract his claim that he was calling American snipers Nazi propaganda, Clint never heard or felt the apology. Eastwood never spoke of Rogen again, never collaborated with him, and allegedly told close associates that if Rogen's name appeared on a casting list again, it had best vanish quickly. Because being treated disrespectfully by someone who believes everything is a comedy is the one thing Clint Eastwood would not put up with. However, this last and subsequent name wasn't a political agitator or comedian. He was Clint's co-star, his equal, and his peer. And until one amazing movie almost blasted it all out, their animosity simmered in complete silence. He was unable to direct his adversary, Gene Hackman. They were electric on screen. They hardly spoke off screen. Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman collaborated on Unforgiven in 1992, a movie that won multiple Oscars and revolutionized the Western genre. Although it appeared to be a perfect partnership between two titans, there was a simmering fire beneath the stoic performances. Clint has a reputation for managing a polite, close-knit set. Control, silence, and trust were important to him. Hacker. He was infamously argumentative, erratic, and fiery. Eastwood expected discipline from his performers even if he offered them freedom. Heat was brought by Hackman, too much of it. There were rumors of difficulties from the first week of filming. Hackman had trouble taking notes. He would stop Clint in his tracks, challenge blocking, encourage line rewrites. It wasn't rebellion. It was a source of pride. That phrase doesn't work, observed Hackman, pausing mid-take in a crucial sequence, according to one assistant. I won't say that. Clint remained silent. He just gazed, then said, "You will?" in a gentle yet lethal tone. There was no shouting. It was the last one. Like a storm cloud in the desert, tension lingered over the remainder of the shoot. There, silences spoke more than words, but they never quarreled in front of the crew. Yes, respect for one another, love between two people, not a trace. Both guys left with gold statues after Unforgiven, but that was the final time they ever entered. The same set. Years later, when asked about the movie, Clint would bring up Morgan Freeman. He also never requested Hackman to return and never mentioned him as a favorite co-star. He would bring up Richard Harris, but Hackman industry sources thought the relationship was irreparable, even though the respect was genuine. Too much tension and too much ego mean only one thing: one and done in Clint's universe. Shortly afterward, Hackman would stop acting. Eastwood proceeded, selecting his network of acquaintances with care. For Clint Eastwood, chemistry is about trust rather than fame, and it's over once that's shattered, even by another legend. 1 unforgettable movie, 2 idols, and an impenetrable wall of silence. Because a door that is closed by Clint Eastwood remains closed. The gunslinger's silence. Clint Eastwood made a point without ever shouting. He never threw a fit. He avoided discussing personal matters in interviews. He did not retaliate when someone crossed the boundary. Instead, he simply watched and waited. He silently and irrevocably cut them off. Clint established his image on something quite different in Hollywood, where charm and teamwork are valued highly. steadfast conviction. These 5 famous people discovered the hard way that their time with Eastwood was more than simply a job. It served as a test of self-control, discipline, and respect for everyone. Some people did not pass it with flying colours. The question is now yours. Did some of these resentments go too far in your opinion? Or was Clint justified in remaining silent? Leave a comment with your ideas. Everyone was read by us. Click the subscribe button and enable notifications if you're interested in more unseen stories from Hollywood's heyday. For every name that Clint Eastwood found objectionable, there was another that he secretly liked, and those will be made public very shortly.